Welcome everyone to the April 5th meeting of the City Council's Social Service Grant Committee. I am Karen Hiller and I was chair last year, and so I will get the meeting kicked off. We have brief business to get a chair elected for this year, and then the purpose of today's meeting is to brief the committee on our timeline and our grant process for this year, ask any questions. We do have 2 new members this year, so that should be good quality time. So I will call the meeting to order and engage my 2 colleagues, Brett Kell and Hannah Nager, to introduce themselves, and then let's get going on nominating and electing a chair for this year. Councilman Kell, your mic's on, so go ahead, and then Councilwoman Nager.
My name is Brett Kell. I do have a little bit of background in the social services with working at DCF for about 4 years, and then also working at Lansing Correctional Facility. And as a family that was on DCF benefits off and on for about 10 years, I do have a very good knowledge of how the social services work and kind of what's needed in the Topeka area when it comes to that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Nager?
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'm Councilwoman Hannah Nager. I am the representative of District 6, and this is my first foray into this sort of social service grant work. I have not been a part of this process, and so I'm excited to learn more about that today. Thank you.
You're welcome, and welcome to the committee. Both of you, I think people know that I've been chair before. I'm happy to do it again if that works for you, but I'm also happy to step aside and provide some support for one of you to take the reins if that's what you want to do. So, open for nominations for chair.
I nominate Ms. Karen Hiller.
And I would second that.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Pose same sign. All right, done. Now, you're on deck for next year. So, we'll get this handed off. With that, I want to introduce those who are with us, Corey Wright and Carrie Higgins from the City of Topeka's Housing Department, who are our city-side grant managers for the social service grants. And then Brett Martin, Jessica from United Way, Lenher from United Way, I know these things, too soon after lunch or something, who are our contracted process and grant administrators for this will be going into the third year, right? Third year, yeah. And just to get ahead of any other comments, to great acclaim. People have thought they've done a great job. So what we're going to do is hand off to Corey and Carrie and to Jessica and Brett to do the review of the timeline and the calendar. With that, you'll see that the process is already underway. This is sort of a briefing. There really aren't any changes on deck, so if you have questions, please ask them. If it all looks pretty well packaged up, we'll just roll straight into the calendar and the next parts of the grant process. Corey, you care?
Actually, Brett and I spoke, and he's going to be leading this part of the conversation.
Sure. So,
Okay.
good afternoon. This is the timeline that we have that we've put together for the year based on the committee's recommendations last year. So, training for the committee is really the first step in this particular process, and that's obviously happening today, April 5th. We will release the request for proposal, or the RFP, by April 18th. We're releasing it before we do the application workshop for the applicants, per the suggestion of the committee last cycle. So by April 18th, the RFP will be released to the community the following Monday, so a week, just a week after that, on April 25th at 10 a.m. We will have an application workshop where we will walk through the request for proposal with any and all attendees. It will be virtual, but it will also be recorded as we've done in the past, providing any information and answering any questions that potential applicants may have related to the details of the request for proposal. And as Councilwoman Hiller suggested earlier, no major changes to the RFP for this year. Looking ahead then to the intake of the applications will be due by 5 p.m. on May 27th, so giving programs roughly 1 month to complete those. During that time, the team from United Way of Greater Topeka will be available to answer any and all technical assistance questions related to the applications. And on those areas where we need clarification, we always lean into the city and their expertise. Once we look at the applications, when they come through by June 8th, we will notify any of those applicants who have not met the minimum requirements, let them know that their applications will not be moved forward for scoring. This is an opportunity for us to make sure that all of the applications that move forward to the scoring committee will meet all of the minimum requirements. In addition to that, then we move into the review process. In the review of the applications, we plan to have 3 to 5 reviewers secured by the middle of May, and then by June 24th, have the application scoring as well as a year-end performance on the prior year grants available for this committee. So that's by June 24th. This committee will hear about the scores. The week of July 5th, we have this committee meeting to review scoring and recommendations. And the week of July 18th, the appeal process closes. So we open the application. The applications are submitted. As I mentioned, we identify any of those that do not meet minimum requirements and let them know. Then they move on to scoring. Once those are scored, we bring those recommendations before the committee to have some conversation. And then there is an appeals process so that those applicants have an opportunity to appeal their scores. And that closes the week of July 18th. We do that based on the budget calendar for the city, so that by August 1st, we do have a recommendation of funding levels for City Council. And then sometime around the 1st of October, the council adopts the budget, and then we move forward beginning in the new year. So that's the basic timeline, beginning in April and ending roughly in October in terms of the active work of this committee. I will entertain any questions that you might have about that timeline.
Councilman Kell.
So you said there's a second chance on when it comes to the scoring where they can appeal their score. But if they do not meet the minimum requirements, is there a second chance for them to maybe, if they may have forgotten to put something in their packet or put something on the application, is there a second chance for them to add something on to be able to go to the review process?
No, there's not an opportunity. Again, the team is available for 4 weeks. And so they have opportunity to be able to share any and all information with the technical assistance team at United Way, but also with the city. But there isn't an opportunity after the submission deadline. So once those applications are submitted May 27th, there isn't an opportunity to rework those.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Councilwoman Nager?
Thank you, Chair. As far as this is all the work that you guys are doing at United Way. As far as our involvement in this process, what is needed from the committee and what does the schedule look like for us?
And you want me to field that, or Chair, do you want to field that?
Let me take a shot at that. You all, as council members, were involved in this process last fall. What happens is that the committee, it's funny, I was kind of circling dates on the calendar, not really anticipating your question, but the committee meets, the process runs from April to August, where the agencies are involved in learning about the process, applying, the applications get processed, a report comes out to us. If there are appeals, then they get a certain amount of time to appeal. We hear the appeals. We finalize the recommendation to the council during that period of April to August, mostly. Then once the process is done, this committee will then take a look back at how that process went and decide and review that process and make any recommendations to change the process, the dollars, anything about that process. We will look at this fall after this year's process is over. If you think about it, the committee last year then took it to the council with all the detail in it so that the council could approve it, so that then starting January 1, that process is locked. It's not negotiable anymore. It's already decided, and we roll through that application process with a process that's been fully approved by the council. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, so that it's good and it's well thought through, but also because it has become important from experience over the years that it is locked, that it's thorough, that everybody knows what's in it, so that we don't attempt, that because of big hearts or whatever, to do an end around on that process during that particular cycle, that it's set for the cycle, then we can review it for the following year. Does that help?
It does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Could you also address the qualifications of the reviewers so that the committee and those, we have lots of new folks as well as some returnees from the social service agencies. So welcome everyone, and people will appreciate that information as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we seek to secure 3 to 5 reviewers who have substantial grant experience, and that grant experience can look any number of different ways. It can be a review of grants and scoring of grants. It can be management of grants. It can be development of grants. But we look to individuals in the community who have substantial experience related to grants in order to bring the best possible eyes to these applications and the best possible scores to those applications.
And in particular, that's been driven, again, from experience over the years, and because our grants are performance and outcomes based.
Correct.
Rather than just importance or
Right.
issue. It's our system, if you didn't know it, is right now set up that you have to have had at least 2 years of track record of delivering and administering the program you're applying for before you can apply to us for the first time, with the underlying principles that the city wants to provide core support and also wants to, again, to protect those dollars. A little easier to get startup money than it is to get carry-out money, and also then to make sure that the performance has been tested and proven. There's a point score system that we'll go over in a minute, I guess, that weights all those various things in the application also. Questions on that? Okay, I think we can go to were you going to do more training on the process?
No,
Okay.
he covered it well.
Yeah, so pretty much the timeline is what we were going to go over today, and go over the scope In future meetings, I didn't bring the score sheets with me, so in future meetings, we can take a look at the scoring and we can take a look at RFP in particular. But today, I stayed
I'll
timely
take responsibility.
Sure.
The way this is set up, we would not even meet again until June 24th, after the process was over.
Okay.
I was unaware that we were looking at the score sheet as
Yeah,
well, so
sorry
I
about
don't,
that.
I
Well,
don't,
this was the overall training for the committee.
Yeah, but I don't remember
Members.
going through all of that in the past.
I don't either.
Timeline was
I'm not sure
primarily
that we
when
have. I don't
yeah,
think we've had two brand new
two brand new.
members
Sure.
in a long time.
Sure.
Well, I tell you what, do the committee members, I mean, I know everybody had all of the materials in the fall. Hopefully the packet's pretty self-explanatory. Committee members, I'll lay it out to you. There is a scoring sheet that shows, and there also is well, we've got the funding priority sheet here, right? We can go over that. I think that will help. Let's go over that with everybody, and then,
I don't have a copy of that.
Okay. Yeah, I can,
I knew we had at least the two.
yeah, I can
we go.
discuss the.
Let's go over the priorities and the kind of, this second sheet that you all have explains a lot more, and then we'll see where we are.
Yeah, so the priority sheet was approved by this committee in October, November-ish of last year, right? Right, okay, got
The
it.
whole package, and then the
Yes.
council in
Yes, got it.
January.
So you can see the mission statement is up above. And then when Brett is talking about the eligibility criteria, the minimum standards, these are the minimum standards that we're looking for. So you can know if they either meet these qualifications or they don't, which would disqualify them if they did not. So the minimum grant award is $10,000, the maximum at $25,000. We have two agencies that, a very long story, but they have kind of been given a different maximum amount. Shawnee Medical Society has a maximum of 50, and Positive Connections has a maximum of 35,000. We can go into that further if you'd like more information on that. No new unattested programs. There's no set-aside amount for new programs. You can see that the total budget is $434,904, with just a little bit coming from our CDBG HUD funds, and the rest coming from the general fund. Below that, you can see kind of our method for scoring. So this was developed several years ago, where if an agency scored 95 out of 100 on the score sheet, they would get 95% of their funding request. So if they requested, $10,000 and I'm gonna kill some math here, but I don't even know why I even tried this, but yeah, if they requested $10,000 and got a 95, it would be 9,500 that they would get for scoring. We would then do that for all of the agencies and rank them in order that they scored, all the way down until we ran out of funds, and then those agencies would not receive any funding. So the scoring is crucial. It's very outcomes based, and so this kind of gives you a little bit of information about that.
Thank you. Let me back up a little bit to the categories that are at the top, in terms of eligibility that there was a question about earlier and so on. This list has not changed much over the years, but it talks about the 6 categories that have been prioritized by the city for funding are senior citizen neighborhood-based programming to include meals, activities, and transportation, medical assistance for low-income individuals, programs for at-risk youth, emergency housing and utility assistance, neighborhood and independent living-based services for persons with severe and persistent mental illness, and support services for residents whom are non-English speaking. That list has evolved over time based on where funding, that if funding is available for certain services elsewhere, then the thought was to let those pipelines take care of those services and provide city funding for services where the city, with the recommendation of the Social Services Committee, saw gaps or needs for funding. So for those agencies that are watching, if you don't have these handouts, we can get them to you, because that's critical in terms of knowing whether you're eligible at all. This cover sheet will do it, and then there is a score sheet that you can get in advance if you want, or you can get at the training, which is coming up here real shortly. There were times where we separated emergency aid from preventive. At this point, those have been grouped together. But it is important to know what the categories are for the applicants and to understand why we have them for committee members. Hopefully that helps as well.
That does. Chair, I do have a question.
Yes.
Can you please explain why the two agencies, Shawnee Medical Society and Positive Connections, have different maximums than the 25,000?
Go ahead.
There was a sense on the part of committee members in the past that they merited a set aside that was higher than that $25,000 level. That happened at a time, or it started at a time when we were transitioning from actually having more money in this pot and providing direct grants to agencies that provided services that were very closely tied in with the city, battered women's shelter, tenant landlord counseling, things like that. There was a time when those got split off and got sent back to the departments that they worked with most directly for direct funding. And these two were sort of the outliers that had more than the $25,000 maximum that was agreed to be the uniform maximum grant at the time. The issue comes up periodically whether we should revisit that and change that, but it was voted through for last year to sustain that grandfathering, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. What services do those two agencies provide?
Positive Connections is our HIV/AIDS provider here in town. So they do case management, they do medical, food, just about everything that involves a particular individual with that diagnosis. So it's pretty broad. Shawnee Medical Society does prescription assistance.
So they do
Healthcare.
healthcare and prescription assistance. They help those who are uninsured and are able to leverage millions of dollars of donated care every year, and connecting people who are uninsured with providers who provide that care, as well as getting them connected to health insurance if in fact they are eligible and meet various types of requirements. They work with a whole host of partners. But
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for that. Yeah. I think for the last 2 years, I was our council representative. Actually, I know I was the council representative with Shawnee Medical Society, but I wanted to make sure that was out there for the public record. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I can add just a
Please.
little, I wanted to add just a little bit. These two agencies, when this change happened, it was a change from them being able to apply for a very high dollar amount to the maximum being at $25,000.
Right.
The change, the reason that it was even considered was a substantial decrease in the amount of funding they were currently getting. And so it was pretty dramatic fall from where they were, and that's how the consideration surfaced. And then over the years, we've just kept it going by committee members. Yeah.
Well, this is exactly the conversation and clarifications we wanted to make sure everybody had before we got into this. Did you have something else?
Yeah, Chair, I do have the score sheet, and I'm happy to just go over the percentages with that, if that would help the.
Great.
If that would help the committee. So as we discussed earlier, the decisions for investment in these programs are heavily weighted toward outcomes. And so what I'll share with you are roughly the ratios of points, the percentages of points within the score sheet to give you a sense of exactly what that looks like. So the score sheet is out of 100 points. So the first 15 points, or the first 15% of this score sheet, is related to the demonstration of community need. That is how it is that the applicant positions themselves as an organization that is meeting a particular community need. The next 50 points, or 50% of the application, is based on performance. That is how it is that they will meet certain outputs and outcomes. And the easy differentiation between outputs and outcomes is outputs are how much you do, and outcomes are how well you do it. So it's not just that you're going to, for example, feed this many people, but how is it that you're going to do that well in a way that actually creates community change. So 15% related to the community need, 50% related to performance, and then 30% or 30 points related to the capacity of the organization to be able to carry this out. In other words, you may have demonstrated a significant community need. You may have put out impressive performance measures, but what resources are you bringing to the table as an organization in order to be able to carry that out? So that's the 30% related to capacity. And then finally, 5% at the end, or 5 points, related to collaborations or partnerships. How is it that you are working with other programs or agencies in the community in order to be able to not only drive your work, but drive the larger work of the community? So again, 15% related to the community need, 50% related to performance, outputs and outcomes, 30% related to the capacity of the organization, the resources they bring to this particular problem that they are hoping to improve, and finally, 5% related to collaborations and partnerships with other organizations and agencies within the community. Any questions about the score sheet?
So when Corey was talking about the score sheet and the calculations, it is the score from that score sheet that then mathematically gets applied to their application amount to then come up with what the recommended allocations are, just straight down the line. And going way back to when the council took this process over, the idea was to be just as empirical as possible so that the process was as transparent and clear and fair as the body was able to make it. So with that, this process is voted on and set for the year. This is what will be used for the process this year. We'll make sure that you get a copy of the score sheet as well, and actually the application form, the whole packet, so that you can look at that. And you are welcome to check with Corey and Carrie, or with Jessica, and Brett being the primary first person to call on all this as the vendor. If you have questions, just so that you understand in advance, if there's something you think maybe should be a little bit different, or you kind of wondered about, that gives you the information and the sketchy sort of overview up front, so that as the process unfolds and you see the scoring and see how it rolls, you'll be able to we'll be able to handle the appeals, if there are any, as a group in the best possible way, and then we'll be ready to review and either affirm or change the process recommendations for next year. Any more questions about that? If you see something when you review the documents that makes you feel like you want us to get back together again to go over that, we can. Otherwise, looking back at the calendar, staff or vendor, United Way is going to get this process kicked off right away. As a committee, we expect, if you look down all the way, we don't appear again until review. So sometime the week of June 24th, we would meet again, by which time that whole application and scoring and recommendation process would be done, and we would be delivered the recommended allocations by United Way and our staff here at the city. Well, it looks like we'll get the report the last week of June, and we will actually meet then not until the first week of July. The week of July 5th is when we would meet again. The agencies are invited to that meeting. They will have already received the preliminary recommendation from the review process. They'll know what it was before we meet. They can be there when we have our meeting the week of July the 5th. If there are any appeals, they will be due the 18th of July, and we will meet again then the last week of July to hear any appeals so that we can give our final recommendation to the council in August. So, committee meeting, unless something comes up, if we need to meet, just speak up and we will. Otherwise, we'll be meeting the week of July 5th, the week of July 25th, and then we will, if we need to meet more than that to address any issues, we can at that time. Otherwise, then we will meet in August. In October, Brett didn't really rely on that, but what has emerged the last couple of years is that based on some questions, we picked a key topic for the committee to address, to transition in between when the grants are over and when the committee starts its review and recommendation process. And this year, that topic is gap analysis. United Way is working on that this year. They may have an update for us, but we wanted, similar to what we just talked about in terms of how the council picked the 6 areas that they were willing to fund in the past. It seemed like maybe it was time for the committee to do an overall review of the gap analysis, or what's happening in the entire social service network in Topeka. Where's the funding coming from? Where's the push-pull? This will be an interesting year for that, because with ARPA and all the changes due to COVID, that scenario has changed. Childcare being an issue, for instance, that we haven't funded in a long time, but yet is an issue. So we'll have that meeting, just kind of a one-off meeting in October, maybe September, depending on how the whole process goes. And then we'll go into our reviews after that. Any further things we should have shared, staff, United Way?
I think I'd just make one more point of clarification for new committee members, just so that we're clear on this. So the scoring, the score does correlate to the amount awarded. However, when we get to the end of the dollars, what likely happens is that when we're near that cutoff, so we, as Corey mentioned, we start at the top and they are ranked. Highest percentage then gets the first cutoff of the 434,000 and change. When we get down to the bottom, it could be that an organization, for example, scored an 85%, but because we don't have enough money left, they may not get 85% of their request. They would simply get the remainder. That's been a question in the past. And oftentimes it's come from applicants as well who have said, we scored 85%, and our response is, yes, you did, but the dollars, by the time we subtracted them from that 434,000, by the time we got to 85%, for example, that was the cutoff, and so that individual program, while they did score that, would only get what remained, and that may be 60%, 50% of their request. So I just want to make that clear that once we get to the bottom, it's likely going to be the remainder of dollars that dictates the grant award and not the percentage of the request.
Along those lines, a little history about the window in the grant, that the minimum grant would be 10,000, which would be the minimum application amount would be 10,000, and the maximum 25. The 10 is in there because as it progressed over time, the sense was that overall, as I said earlier, what the city council wanted to do was provide core funding. Not a lot, not be the big source, be able to spread it around in some key areas, but provide key core funding that then agencies could use to leverage other funding to cover core expenses that might not be specific program expenses and so on. The 10,000 minimum is there because, notwithstanding all that, just the time it would take for an agency to apply for and manage that grant responsibility, as well as for the city and now our vendor to do that program management, it seemed like it needed to be worth everybody's time, in short. So that's why the 10,000 minimum was there. The 25,000 cap was to be able to spread it, but be providing a significant amount of money to each agency. Any further questions from committee members? We have a lot of people here for the briefing on the 26th of April. Will people be able to get these materials in advance? Or do they get them at we have so many agencies on, I just wanted to check for them.
They'll get it. They will get it the 18th and have an opportunity to look at it for
That's
the week
right.
prior, and then they will come to the workshop on the 25th, and it's on the 25th, immediately following that meeting, that the application goes live on EC Impact.
Okay, I have the 26th on the calendar, and so I read the wrong date, the 25th, because you
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so for those who are here as guests for the meeting, if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them right now as well, or comments. Otherwise, if you're considering applying, that packet will come out on the 18th. They need to let you know that they'd like to get it if they're not already on a mailing list.
Correct.
So get hold of,
You can email me. You can email Joyce, who is also on the meeting today, Jay Kotzer at UnitedWayTopeka.org, or me, B. Martin at UnitedWayTopeka.org.
Jay Kotzer or B. Martin at UnitedWayTopeka.org. Any questions or comments from our guests? Okay. Any other items that the committee would like to consider? With that, thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.